My next guest says he is frustrated because Senator Harry Reid and President Obama keep moving the goalposts when it comes to negotiating a deal. Joining me now, Republican Senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. Senator, thank you very much for coming in.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You did an interview with Politico yesterday in which you said, and I quote, "The president is a pathetic leader."
Yeah.
He's only engaged in the last couple of days. You're not one to mince words, but that's pretty hard.
It's not that I, dislike the president, but he has shown very little leadership at a time when the country needs it the most. From a Republican point of view, we've created unreasonable expectations. We have 46 senators. You need 60 votes in the Senate to do big things. We have a slim majority in the House, and President Obama is still president. So for us to suggest to the American people that we could defund Obamacare or delay it for a year by shutting down the government, I think was unrealistic. But having said that, the president's response was, I won't negotiate with you. You will raise the debt ceiling and you will open up the government without any conditions. It's just an immature response. And Harry Reid twice has moved the goalpost when it came to a bipartisan deal in the Senate. So here's where I'm at on a cloudy Sunday afternoon. I'm not going to vote for any deal coming out of the Senate that doesn't have a reasonable chance of getting a majority of House Republicans understanding that defunding and delaying Obamacare is a bridge too far.
Let's take a break and listen in to, you just mentioned Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. He's speaking from the Senate floor right now. They just gavelled in. Let's listen in.
They paid for 2 wars, costing about $2 trillion with borrowed money. And they rang up $400 billion tab for a Medicare prescription drug plan. And, Madam President, they ran up the nation's credit card for years and years on lots of stuff. Now, Madam President, there was one conversation on one of the Sunday shows today that said we were trying to break the cap set in the Budget Act. And we know
just
that
a
on
little
January
portion
15th,
of Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid's opening remarks from the Senate floor. Any reaction to what you just heard there?
Well, you can't say fiscal responsibility without mentioning Harry Reid. This is President Obama, since he's been president for the last 5 years, has added more debt to the national debt than almost all presidents combined. He's on pace to do that. It started at $10.6 trillion. It's now at 16.6 or 16.8. Senator Reid is wanting the Republicans in the Senate to agree to bust the budget caps as a price for opening up the government. We're not going to do that. The one thing that I think all senators and congressmen should do before we open up the government is put ourselves in Obamacare under the same terms and conditions as every American. The Office of Personnel Management at the White House made a ruling that members of Congress are exempt from being in Obamacare. I think that ruling is illegal and is certainly not leadership. So what I'm telling Senator Reid and every other Republican and Democrat, when this debacle is over, and it will be one day, all of us, every member of Congress, should be in Obamacare under the same conditions as every other American. No better, no worse. To me, that's the minimum we should be doing.
One of the great ironies of the Republican quest to defund and then delay the implementation of Obamacare, a fool's errand, you might say. Maybe those are too strong words. But the irony of it is that it blocked what would have been a huge story covering every newscast, local, national, and every front page, the rollout of Obamacare, which was disastrous by any measure.
Here's the good news from a Republican point of view. Obamacare is the disaster we predicted it would be. It's bad for the country, but from a political point of view, the last 12 days have been a nightmare for those trying to sign up for Obamacare. It's been a complete fiasco and failure. But instead of having headlines about people can't sign up for Obamacare, the system doesn't work, it's about the shutdown. But 6 months from now, we won't be talking about the shutdown. If Republicans will embrace reality and get this behind us, we'll be talking about a failed concept called Obamacare. And Democrats, the middle of next summer, will come to us and try to get some relief from this fiasco called Obamacare if we don't screw it up now.
There is this perception, and I think reality as well, of a fundamental inability for this White House to negotiate with Republicans in either house. This was illustrated in a really great piece that I read this week, which did not get a lot of attention, written by Susan Crabtree, the White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner. She was writing about Miguel Rodriguez, who is not a household name. He is the White House liaison to Congress, a hugely important position. She says, quote, Even prominent Democrats say they don't know him. Senate Armed Services Committee Chairman Carl Levin, D. Michigan, says he may have met him but can't recall. When asked what he thinks about Rodriguez, Representative John Larson of Connecticut turned to an aide to ask who he is. This speaks volumes, Senator.
Well, I know Miguel, but here's the problem. Ronald Reagan sat down with Tip O'Neill to solve Social Security at a moment of crisis in a bipartisan fashion. Clinton sat down with Newt to find a way to end the shutdown in 95 and 96. This president's refusal to negotiate, being AWOL at a time the country needs his leadership the most, is a pattern that needs to stop. There's plenty of blame to go around. We overplayed our hand as Republicans, but the Democratic response of trying to jam us, basically, and use this moment to increase spending at a time when the federal government is spending more than the next generation can afford to pay is not the right response. But again, I just want to stress, the Republican Party can survive this if we embrace reality. There are many ways to attack Obamacare. I, along with Senator Barrasso, are going to introduce legislation when this government shutdown is over that would allow every state, if they chose, to opt out of the individual employer mandate under Obamacare. Let South Carolina, if she chooses, to come up with a better plan or a different plan. There are so many ways to attack Obamacare, but to my Republican colleagues, let's embrace reality. We can't defund or delay at this moment. We don't have the political leverage. Let's keep fighting Obamacare, but let's open up the government, and the House should lead. It's important that Paul Ryan come up with a solution that's conservative in nature and send it to the Senate. Put Harry Reid in a box rather than the Senate putting the House in the box.
And that would be the attempt of your legislation there, basically to put the Senate Majority Leader in a box. It would not pass. There's no way it would pass.
No, I think Paul could find a way, along with John Boehner, to open up the government with some good government reforms attached, like making sure we don't have future shutdowns, like making sure that every member of Congress is in Obamacare on the same conditions of every other American, and fixing some of the bipartisan concerns about Obamacare. If you sent that package to the Senate, it really would put Harry Reid on the defensive. The House is offense, the Senate is defense. The best we can do in the Senate as Republicans is block an increase in spending and block some of the bad ideas that they want to push. But if you want to go on offense, it has to come from the House. And the last thing I want to see happen is a bad bill passed the Senate that goes to the House where a majority of Democrats vote for it and a minority of Republicans vote for it, putting John Boehner's speakership at risk. Nobody in the country should want to lose John Boehner as Speaker.
What happens if he does lose that position? What's the alternative? Who are we looking at?
Well, I don't know who would follow John, but it would be a huge mistake for the Republican Party to put the Speaker of the House, who's been a wonderful leader during tough times, following a policy that has no chance of success. If I were king, we would defund, replace, and repeal Obamacare. We just don't have the political leverage, and it would really be heartbreaking to follow a strategy that's quite frankly unrealistic. And one of the victims of that strategy be a fine man called John Boehner.
Democrats are very fond of pointing out the polls these days and how much damage has been done to the Republican Party.
Yes.
But we're still more than a year out from the midterm elections. Will anybody remember this fight?
No, if we're smart, the government shutdown of 2013 will be old news, and we'll be talking about the flaws in Obamacare in 2014. But 60% of Americans want to replace every member of Congress. To my Democratic colleagues, if you think this is working well for you, you need to look at the polls.
All right. Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, thank you very much for coming in. Great to see you, sir.